Hello. Good evening, everybody. This is quite loud. Sometimes I prefer just to speak straight rather than use this, but we'll see how it goes. Yes, whatever. Right. Are we all ready? All good? So welcome to this briefing. It's not been done before. A kind of pre-brief on the ROLEX China Sea Race. It's been a lot of years since we've done one of these, so I thought it was worthwhile that we have this evening in which I can take you through some stuff, and we can go from there. Who am I? Cameron, or Cam. So I am chairman of the Yacht Race Subcommittee, as it's now called. It's kind of a combination of the Big Boat Committee and the Offshore Committee we put together. So we do all handicap racing for yachts under the club. And also the chief scrutineer, which is a hat I've had for a long time. Sometimes the most comfortable hats, because you're enemy number 1, 2, and 3 half the time for these races. But there we are. And I've got a group of people help me out. Nico down here, he's going to help me out with this evening with some bits as well, and it was Elsa at the back to do some of those bits as well, particularly on what happens when you get across the Philippines. So let's move on. That's what I'm going to take you through this evening. So quite a few topics to run through. I'll let you read that at your leisure. So we'll crack on. So the first one I want to do is, of course, just a very simple, if those who've not done it before, that's what we're intending to do. So heading off from Hong Kong down to Subic Bay is a pretty well, hit 145 and keep going kind of direction, and you should end up at Subic Bay. So that way is pretty straightforward. But actually, that was like one of the previous races, all the currents and stuff. If you use those well, it's not a straight line to Subic, and you get there quicker, so I'll leave that to the navs to play with. But a category 1 race under RORC, which makes it somewhat more challenging getting your boat ready for a Cat 1. Plus, we have other stuff on top of that we require as a club, which I shall take you through some of those things. So, big picture stuff here, pre-race. 24th of February is the first deadline for getting your paperwork in. That's not far away. In fact, to me, the race seems like tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff got to be done in a reasonably short period of time. So we will begin December, but we don't have a lot of time to sort quite a few things out as we'll go through this evening and discuss. Yacht documentation, 3rd of March is late entry. You've got to pay more if you do that. And we've got the welcome party on the 3rd of April. See you all there for that one. And then the race starts on the 5th of April. And then we've got 3 to 5 days of beautiful reaching as we head across the Subic Bay. So that's the big picture. Let's look at the documentation timeline here. So 24th of February is that big first dump of documents you have to get ready for. And you're going to have to do quite a lot of work before you get to that point. So one of the first bits of paperwork we're needing is this new one, Stability, Construction and Inspection Declaration. This covers a number of topics, which are to do with does your vessel meet the build requirements, and have you done the right inspections that are necessary now, and a bit more of that later. So you need to sign that off, and you carry the can of any problems that you did not comply with it when you said you did comply with it. So have a read at that one, it's on the website. And then we've got the race safety form. This is that large form, which starts off at the front, it's got your yacht information, and then you move on through that, putting some numbers down, the UPRs and radios and things like that. And then you get on to the big scrutineering checklist at the back, which is an extract of various regulations you have to comply with. It's quite long. And I've had the joy of just updating that again, so yeah, I'm happy to ask questions on that one. More of that later. Then the 24th of February, also the crew experience form. So it's really important you've got a percentage of your crew who know what they're doing, and we will review that. If we're not happy, then we will ask you to go and do some more work on that. So you may find yourself jumping in your boat and heading out, 100 miles or so, or 200 miles out of Hong Kong and coming back in again, just to prove that you're okay out there. But if you do the coastal races, got one tomorrow, then we will count that time, particularly the night sailing. Because really, I always say to my guys, the race doesn't start until it gets dark. That's when we start racing an offshore race. 24th of February, another document there to do, that's relatively straightforward. And 27th of March, we did next of kin, and we also need all your photographs, your passports, and all that sort of stuff into ELSA. And then the 3rd of April is really just the pre-getting out of Hong Kong, which is the usual stuff you have to do. 72 hours, but the close of the weekend, so probably lots will do on the 3rd of April on the Monday. Port clearance, and then immigration clearance within 24 hours of leaving on the race. Else I don't know whether we're getting them to come here this time. We'll try. We'll try and get them to come here to help do the immigration. We'll have to wait to see near the time. All right, so that's lots of documents that we need to get in. Pick up on some of these again a bit later in the presentation. Let me have a look at this one. The offshore special regulations, which is at the heart of you getting your boat and your crew ready for this race. You need to get to know these documents. So offshore special regulations itself is not the easiest thing to read. Believe you me, I've had to ask for clarification to the clarification sometimes. So it's a tricky document. But what I do is I take the Royal Yacht Club prescriptions, which I write, and also the ROC prescriptions, and put them into that checklist at the back of the safety form. So that's all extracts in there. If you get yourself through that checklist, you should be compliant with all those other documents. However, if you don't understand something in the checklist, the best thing to do is pick up the original document, read that, because it will give you more details in there. Notice of race, read it as well, please, and the sailing instructions. It all seems obvious, but you'll be surprised at how many questions myself and Elsa gets asked that are in those documents. So rather you didn't ask us that, and you read the documents. So what I'm going to cover in this section here is those things. Things that are expensive, things that are problematic, and things that are new. Let's crack on with that. So yeah, this is new. The Stability Construction Inspection Declaration form. The construction requirements haven't changed in the latest version. They've been the same for a long time now. It's just they're getting enforced more strictly these days. Building plan reviews, not actually new, but it's been more enforced than they used to be. That said, if you don't have a building plan review and you have an ISO Class A certification for your yacht, come and speak to us and we'll have a chat about it. However, if you have a proper racing yacht that has been built in the last years, since 2010, you will need a building plan review because it hasn't got an ISO A certification. It will come with something else. So those are the tricky ones. This is new. Structural inspection every 24 months. Now, on the race website, there is a letter there that I put together that gives you 3 potential surveyors you can use to get those done. And if you pair up with somebody else, you get it cheaper by most of these guys, probably for 2/3 of the price rather than the full price. So find a buddy and get them both done on the same day is the advice there. It's a relatively straightforward inspection. You do have to get the boat lifted and it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's just looking around the structure of the boat. Keel, rudder, outside, inside structure, make sure the boat is in good condition. And you also need to do that anytime you ground the vessel. That's any sort of grounding, guys. So don't ask me what kind of grounding. If you touch the bottom, you should get it redone. That's what the rules say. So don't touch the bottom. Communication equipment. EPIRBs. Yeah, nothing new there. We need to have them. We've had them for a long time now. But you've got to get them properly registered. You buy one and get it registered. Now the issue being is because we haven't been offshore for a long time, it's likely a lot of your EPIRBs have now gone out. They're just too old. They've got a life typically of about 6 years. And they're often a year out when you buy them. So you might be finding they all need replacing. So you need to get it done reasonably soon, and you need to get the registration done. I would say a good 4 weeks before you need to go anywhere, so you know that registration has been properly complete. Please don't buy these devices for your vessel or even your personal self from overseas. I strongly advise you. You might get them a couple of pounds cheaper, but I wouldn't go there. So something like this, or something like this, which is only optional, this piece of equipment, that's an optional personal one, but of course the ship EPIRB is not optional, you must have it. You want to buy them here, guys, if you've got a Hong Kong vessel, because they need to be programmed, and if you start putting programming in there from another country, that causes confusion. So buy them here, get them programmed here. Most of the electronic stuff you can buy elsewhere, but those are the ones I say buy here. Then you'll need a satellite phone. So on a satellite phone, guys, it looks something like this. It's either this one or Inmarsat equivalent. You can see the two most common ones up here, two different suppliers. You've got to have one of those on board your boat, and you've got to have at least 15 minutes of emergency calling and we say 75 minutes to start with. You probably want more than that for weather data and all the rest of it. Just to be quite clear, the Iridium Go, which is here, down here, this is not a telephone. That is not a sat phone, guys. So please don't try and pass it off as one. Give me a second. Toys out. So that's the Iridium Go there. I love this device, that's why I own one. But it's not a satellite telephone. There was a recent fatality in the USA, very recent, in which this was the only satellite phone on board the boat. And the owner went over the side and unfortunately drowned. And guess whose phone, because you have to pair this up with a mobile phone, a smartphone, guess whose phone was paired up to it? Yep, the guy who was in the water. So they couldn't use this device for quite some time until they managed to repair it with another phone. So that's why it's not a satellite phone. We want a device that is all in one. So you can pick it up, you can take it with you, and this is all we need. But it also needs to be a waterproof cover. These are not waterproof. Absolutely not. It might be called the Extreme, but it's not waterproof. I know because this is the old ambush one, which I fried by dropping in water. Internal battery and all this, you can see that. So make sure you know that. You do have a Iridium Go, that's fine. It can be the one that's left switched on all the time in which you receive the data from race control and all the rest of it, but then you would take your proper one and stick it in the grab bag. And that's where it lives. Any questions on that? Because I know it can be confusing. Okay. Next one I've got for you, like just a kind of example. This is yours. So, because just this is his grab bag for his emergency communication if you want to get your life wrapped. So a nice example. Yep.
Are you going to share this afterwards?
Yeah, this has been videoed, and we'll put this on the website as well. Right, next one I've got for you. Trackers. So what we've done in our prescriptions is we've taken the Cat 0 requirement and put it in Cat 1, which is to have a tracker on board which you can send and receive data. But we give you one, so that's nice and easy. It's not a cost to you, it's part of the entry fee. You'll have a tracker on board, and you have to pair it up with your smartphone, and now you can send messages back to Elsa, and she can send you messages. You've got to practice using it before you go, please. So give it to one of your younger members on the boat or something who knows how to use these things. We had a few issues in the last race of people not being able to use it. So it's very important you practice it, because this is now going to become your primary means of communication when it comes to getting weather reports and getting information about where the other boats are on the racetrack if you're unable to download them yourself. See why shortly. Oh yeah, just one thing before we move on, guys, to clear. Sat phone needs to be connected up to something that looks like this. A proper external antenna. Not the little puck that comes in the box with the sat phone. That will not cut it. It has to look like this. At the back of your boat, with a nice big fat cable that belongs to it as well, that comes all the way down to whatever phone you've decided to use, or you want to use this. It pretty well gives you guaranteed communications. Okay, so we give you the tracker, and you can do the 2 recons. Next one I've got for you is VHF. So you've got to have a DSC set, digital subscriber calling. In other words, it's got the red button on it. In offshore special regs, it says ones that are older than 2015 don't have to be DSC. In our prescriptions, we've said no, you all have to be DSC. That's not a big cost, and frankly, you should do that already on your vessel. But along with that, you've got to have an emergency antenna, because the antenna is going to be at the top of the mast. That is required in offshore special regulations. And it's got to have an MSSI number. So in other words, your boat has got to have a radio license that you can put an MSSI number into it, because if you don't put an MSSI number in, that red button will not work. It's disabled. So, and you need to practice doing DSC comms. I'll come back to that. You've got an AIS on board your vessel, and it's got to be on the entire race. You must not turn it off. And we have seen issues in previous races of lack of range on people's AIS. Quite extreme lack of range, you know, half a mile at best type of thing. That's a serious problem, because it also means that vessels cannot see you unless you're in half a mile range, and that's probably too close already. You should be getting a good 5 miles, more like 10 miles out of these things. So I will be looking and checking to make sure your device is functioning properly. It's relatively easy for us to check that. So please go and check your antennas are in good condition. It's normally the link to the antenna that's causing the problem. And please practice using AIS for collision avoidance. Again, that's what these coastal races are out there for, is for you to go out, particularly at night, and practice using AIS for anti-collision. It is a wonderful device for that, once used properly. But you need to go to play with the buttons and set up your guard zones and know what you're doing. Don't wait until the race. And a little last one for you, radar reflectors. Can we please make sure we have decent radar reflectors that comply with offshore special regulations? They need to look something like this. I do not want to see any pencil type ones like this. These do not comply with offshore special regulations. In fact, they're a placebo. They do absolutely nothing. Even the manufacturer knows that. Okay, the big thing that's gone is HF. So I've taken HF away from the requirements. That is a major shift. We've been doing this for 20 plus years or something. It was never a Cat 1 requirement. We brought it in quite sensibly because satellite communication was quite limited, back in the days of Yo, and there wasn't a lot of cover out there for us in various ways. So we did HF. It made a lot of sense at the time, but things have moved on now, and things like Iridium, all the satellites we have up there now, the trackers and everything else we've got on board the boat, I feel it's now time that we go back to standard Category 1 communications, except that we have said you have to have a tracker with receive and sender, which we give you. So that is really the reason for taking it away. And we all know how difficult it is to use, how difficult it is to install, and it had limited functionality in quite a few of the races that I was on, with people having very poor installations, very poor range. Do remember, guys, that this one here, your E-pair is your primary means of distress alert when you're offshore. It's not AHF, DSC, it's this device. This is the one we turn to tell somebody we're in distress back on the shore side. And yeah, we can follow it up with the tracker, we can follow up with our sat phones. These are not GMDSS, this is the kit that we call persistence on. But if you are having to get off your yacht, and we have had it a few times over the years, then please can we remember to take the tracker with you as well as the sat phone. Don't leave it on the boat. Any questions on that one before we move on? This is a pretty big change. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with still taking HF. I like HF, so it's not anti it whatsoever. It's a good communication means if it's properly set up and you know what you're doing with it. Right, let's move on. Crew. What do your crew need? So all your crew have got to have one of these devices, an AIS PLB. There's a lot of confusion around the term PLB. PLB simply means personal location device, and there's two primary ones. You've got AIS and you've got EPIRB. So, that's your EPIRB type 1, or modern, very small version of it, and these are your AIS ones. So these are the ones that are mandatory, and all the crew members have got to have them. I strongly suggest you take the numbers of all of those devices, put them beside your chart plotter downstairs, because if somebody falls off, it'd be nice to know what the number is you're looking for. They always start with the same number for a personal one, but you list them there, and they also can tell authorities if they're looking for somebody in the water, you know what the number is. Because you often just come up as another ship in amongst all the ships. So. Other thing, it's nothing new here. You need to be able to put a GPS position down on your plotter within 10 seconds of somebody falling over the side. So please practice that and make sure you do practice it. Don't just say, oh, I've done it. Go across your plotter, press the buttons. You'll be surprised what you learn when you try that. Because the first time you do it, you'll realize you didn't know what buttons to press, or you don't do it correctly. And then you don't understand what mode it's in, which is arranging bearings and casualty, and then you don't know how to turn it off of that mode again later. So go through all that process and you'll learn quite a bit about your kit on board the boat. Life jackets, got to look something like this with crotch straps and light classification. It's got to have a hood. So make sure you've got life jackets that are correct. And this is a big one for all my inspectors that come on board. The person in charge is responsible for inspecting that every 12 months. I would suggest, of course, it's inspected shortly before the race, and certainly before the person comes in to check your yacht. I have instruction to my scrutineers that the life jackets are not in good order, just walk off the boat. Because probably the rest of the boat's in similar condition. So please, please make sure the life jacket's in good order. Check the dates, check everything works, check the condition, check they're properly packed. No rusty gas cylinders, etc. And safety tethers. That's a bit challenging, this one, because if you read offshore special regulations, it's really confusing what they're asking for. It boils down to, you've got to have a 1 meter tether. Everybody has to have a 1 meter tether. But if you've got a 2 meter tether, there must be an intermediate hook at 1 meter. So really, just go out and make sure you buy something like this that's got the 3 hooks on it, and make sure it's got the overload indicator on it. Because if it hasn't got the overload indicator, it's not compliant. Right, anything on that before I move on? What have we got next? Life rafts. We've had quite a few problems with life rafts over the years. The biggie for everybody is to make sure if you've got a life raft and it's been through servicing, which happens after 3 years, then it must be serviced by an authorized service station for that life raft. There is a list of them on the race website. If it's not done by one of those agents on the website for that type of life raft, we will not accept the life raft as being serviced, because that's what offshore special regulations say, and there's some really good reasons for it that I won't go into right now. Again, most, if not all of our life rafts are probably out of date unless you bought one recently. So that's a bit of a major cost to think about, and we'll come back to that, and we may reduce some of that cost a bit later. So we will check your certification for your life rafts. Something that I allowed in offshore special regulations, because they came in a few years ago and said, like, all your life rafts have got to have more than 24-hour pack in them. The issue with that is everybody would have had to repack their life raft or bought new ones. That's not great. And also, they get really heavy as well when you put all that food and water inside them and the other kit. So in our prescriptions, we've allowed for the fact that you can, it's on the floor when you want it. You can have a less than 24-hour pack in your life raft, but all the stuff that's missing out of the life raft must go into the grab bag. And there must be one grab bag for each life raft. So the same kit in each of them, so you're duplicating things. And the other thing as well, which we're really hot on, is you must buy the SOLAS kit. It must look like this. I don't want any Mars bars and things like that for your emergency food. It has to be the proper stuff that would be in your life raft, nothing else. This is easy to buy in Hong Kong, and the place I always go to is Lanzhou, and that's the email address. And it's cheap, really is very cheap to buy it from there. So easy to get stuff that needs to be properly made into your grab bag. Sails, a little bit of a change on here. So this is standard, heavy weather jib. You must be able to attach it to the forestay without using the lock groove. Nothing new there, although it's surprising how some boats didn't comply with that in previous races. Storm jibs, same kind of thing. You've got to be able to attach it to the lock groove without using the lock groove itself, or to stay. And it's got a high visibility colour like this one here, so it's fine. You need both. This is the change. So you're now allowed to have a 50% reef on your mainsail rather than having a trysail. So for some yachts, that'll be a relief because it's quite hard to stick a trysail on them due to the construction of the mast. So, but you're going to have to move your reefing point, which is probably 40%, because that was the old CAP 3 and 2 rule, and move it up to 50% in order to comply with this requirement. But it's one sail away for you. Or you can still have a trysail. Bilge pumps, again, a bit of a change here as well. So we still require the manual bilge pump upstairs and downstairs. Nothing new there. Just make sure they work, please. But this is the new one. You need an electric bilge pump, 200 litres per minute capacity. You can achieve that with multiple pumps. So if your boat already has electric bilge pumps installed and it meets that capacity, fine, there's nothing to do, you're fine. But if not, you're going to have to do something else. This is Nico's one. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. This is Nico's one. It's got a nice little box here, and that's the electric bilge pump that you can grab and move anywhere in the boat. Just be careful about the discharge for it. It needs to be a discharge that's long enough to go over the side of the vessel if you've got an enclosed cockpit. If you've got an open cockpit, and it drains at the back, then your discharge pump can simply go into the cockpit itself. Think about that. And the other one, just because I have issues with this, soft wooden bungs, you've got to have them attached in some way beside your actual through hull fitting. But please make sure that it's the right size for that through hull fitting. First aid kits. Yep, standard first aid kit should look something like that. And then you require an offshore medical kit. Now, it's not really defined in offshore special regulations what that looks like. When you speak to your doctor, they're pretty good at Hong Kong. You say, this is what I'm doing, what kind of broad spectrum antibiotics can I have in order to be able to do something on out there. And for this kind of stuff anyway, we have these big boxes, but we always phone back to a medic ashore to tell us what to do with them as far as prescribing drugs and what have you. We don't just do it off our own back. That's the way they're designed to be used. But we put something together. Equipment purchases. So things that need to be purchased soon, guys, in order for you to make that race start. Life rafts. These can be problematic in Hong Kong because they're hard to ship in here, and there's not that many leisure life rafts in Hong Kong. Most of the ones that are here are for servicing, the big vessels, the SOLAS type ones. But these ISO ones in short supply, and we come back to that shortly. We might be able to help you. E-perps, as I say, get them purchased, get them registered. Those are available here in Hong Kong. Crew AS beacons, they're available, but they're in short supply. So you've got to get on with purchasing these, because you might find the lead time for resupply. If we all go to the two main suppliers that we know in Hong Kong, you're going to have an issue, because they're going to run out pretty damn fast, and they're going to have to get more stock in. So now is the time to start going and buying these things. And sat phones. My suggestion for sat phone is to buy from the USA. That's where I just bought my kit from, as a sat phone store that I've been using for years over there for buying all my sat stuff, and I buy all my airtime from there as well. So that's relatively straightforward to get from overseas. I'm looking to try and do something, especially with life rafts, in getting some sort of group discount. This is just an example, but I'm still working on it. We'll come back to you on that one. But just as an example, £1,300 with some shipping. If we all get together, the shipping will be relatively cheap. Can buy you an 8-man life raft. So that sounds pretty good to me, because I know it's almost double that if I go over to Viking and buy one. So some significant savings. The issue with this particular make is you can't get them serviced in Hong Kong. You have to send it back to the UK. I'm still working on that. The plan will be for me to see what I can do and come back to the skippers of the vessel, send an email out to you all and say, right, by this date, contact this person and you can be part of the bulk purchase. Once you go past that date, you're on your own. So we'll try and work a deal out for you, because we know this is quite a big item, and the delay in getting them into Hong Kong, if you ship as a block box, that will be a lot easier. So I'll come back to you on that. Right, there you go. You give my I'll rest.
Hi everyone. Speaking up. All right, boat preparation. So it's quite a big undertaking. It takes a lot of time. Obviously, it depends how well your boat has been maintained over the years or during the racing season already. But basically, you pretty much have to turn it upside down and look at every boat, every shackle, every block, every halyard, obviously inspect the mast, shrouds, so on and so forth. So you really need to do that thorough inspection and maintenance to start with, because once you're underway, I mean, there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to do. So it's really better to preempt rather than to fix while on the way. The electrical system as well is always a big problem. Everything goes well when you go out racing for 2 or 3 hours, and obviously as soon as you leave the harbor and you're in the middle of nowhere, middle of the night, that's where everything falls apart. So very important to make sure that all the connections are well set, that cables are not worn out, that you don't have any shorts potentially hidden somewhere in the bridges. Again, it's just like simple things as checking for electrical leaks make sure that your system is sound. Engine inspection, I mean, you probably do that anyway every week before you go out. But just before you go out racing offshore, it's probably good to be a little bit more thorough, making sure that the alternator is running properly, that there's no issues with the brushes and things like that. What you don't want is to lose the ability to generate electricity in the middle of the race. That would be quite annoying, I would say. So it's not only engine inspection, it's also thinking about what spare you need to bring with you in case you have breakdown, and these things do break down. You might think of like bring with you a belt, bring with you some of the filters, bring with you a water pump, at least the bare minimum that you know you can fix yourself so that you can maintain the production of power. Same inspection and maintenance. When you're racing every week, I guess you have the chance to inspect yourselves and make sure that they are in good shape. It's always, I think, a good idea to have them inspected by your cell maker before you head out, and make sure that they need, if it needs reinforcement, at least you get it done before you go. It's, again, fixing the cells when you're out is not ideal. Through hull checks, make sure, and it's pretty obvious, but like make sure that the seatbelts are actually in good shape, that you're not going to start taking water. So it's because you're going to have to leave the boat anyway out of the water for inspection. It's probably a good idea to inspect all the through hulls. This has been touched upon by Cam already, so I'm not going to say it again, but again, making sure that all your emergency calls have valid registrations. Sat phones, having enough minutes, and also like make sure that you're familiar on how to use these devices. Well, it's not that we use them every day. So just a simple thing as like getting data, receiving grids, weather grids, or things like that. You need to train before you head out. So it might be part of a bigger drill, like a crew drill, and we get back to this as well. But like make sure that you know how to use all the equipment which is on board, and that as skippers you're not the only person that knows how to use it. Because if you're incapacitated in any form, then all that nice equipment is now completely useless. So the second in charge, your first mate, absolutely needs to be familiar with all the equipment as well. A lot of equipment runs on batteries, so make sure that they are not out of date and they're actually working. Chart plotters, so we are obviously using electronic charts, which is great. Now these charts are great as long as they are updated. Make sure that you have the latest update, not only for the charts but for the lights as well. So that's quite important. And talking about charts, I mean, you also need to have the appropriate paper charts for the duration of the trip, including the secondary ports where you might look for shelter. So you need to have these paper charts, and these paper charts have to be current. And obviously, you need to know how to use these paper charts. VHF, so Cam talked about it already. So you see there are DSC. Make sure you do the DSC self-test and that you're familiar with the DSC practice procedures. Again, it's not only the skipper, but at least the skipper and the first mate. Ideally, actually, anyone on board should be able to run through the DSC procedures. Practice using the AIS, the same thing as the VHF. And when you've seen some of the pictures, I'm a bit of a big label fan, but like it makes life much easier. I mean, as you know, you're a boat owner and you're the skipper, you know where everything is. not everybody does. Again, if you're in a situation where you cannot point where things are, when you need a chart that the crew can use to locate the appropriate equipment, and that equipment needs to be labeled in large font, and make as visible as possible so that in case of emergency or panic, it's actually less difficult to find that equipment. Testing and loading of all the safety equipment, starting with the life raft, making sure that this is properly set on board, easy to access, secure. It's not going to go away at, with the first wave or first roll. Again, it's pretty common sense. Cooking stove installation and testing. Not everybody keep the cooking facilities in the galley all year long. So if it's not already on board, then make sure that you put it quite ahead of the race, and that you test. You have the gas supply being tested properly by a specialist. Crew, that leads us to crew preparation. So regulation is that 50% or a minimum of 2% must hold a valid offshore personal safety certificate, and that's including the person in charge. So I think there's been some sessions that have been run recently by Cameron. Hopefully there will be a few more in the new year, or to make sure that everyone has the proper qualification. Valid first aid certificate, it's 30%, minimum 2 people. On my boat, I require all the crew to have that certificate. It's as simple as that. I think it's easy to get. You never know. It's like someone can be trained and have the first aid certificate, and at the first time they see blood, they just like bang. They completely lose it. So that means that they can't actually provide first aid. So have as many as possible holding that certificate. DSC procedures, we already talked about it, but again, you're going to make sure that you can write it down. You can have a cheat sheet which is glued next to the, or taped next to the VHF, and make sure that in case of emergency, people only have to read as opposed to remember words. So it makes things much easier. Emergency drills, that's my favorite. So these ones, there's no way around. You have to do it. You have to train the crew properly, and you have to train the crew that is actually going with you. And there are like few things that absolutely need to be done during these drills. So MOVs, and I know it's nice and it's easy to throw like a couple of thunders in the water and basically go and get them, but it's actually better to throw someone in the water and actually really see what it looks like to take someone and leave someone out of the water while you're still on the sail and while it's still blowing. So you don't have to do it with, in 20 knots of wind and 3 meters away, but it's actually really a good thing and a good training, I think, to put someone already in the water. Even better if you can do it at night, because these things tend to happen at night rather than before daylight. But again, so MOV fire drills. So what if it's engine fire? What if it's electrical fire? So make sure that the crew knows how to respond. Make sure that the crew knows how to respond if you are incapacitated. If you're not able to give instructions, then they have to be able to take the initiative, and they have to be able to put out the fire without you saying what to do. And that goes for all the points under emergency drills, by the way. Abandon ship, hopefully you don't have to get to that point. But again, it's like who does what and in which order. So you have to rehearse, and you have really make sure that people know what they have to do. So it's better to do them not to, I would say like maybe a month before the race, as opposed to like 6 months before the race. So emergency steering. So we all have the tiller, emergency tiller. So it's a given that we know how to, we need to know how to set up that emergency tiller. However, we can also have a loss of rudder, so it's very important to know how to deploy a drone and how to steer the boat with a drone. Again, this has to be done for real, it's not a pretend. It's actually pretty fun to do, so again, some practice. Storm cell setting, again, and I would do that like in windy conditions if possible, as opposed to flat seas, so that it's as close as possible to a rig situation. Crew experience. So this will be reviewed to make sure that there is enough knowledge and experience amongst the crew. I don't think that anybody wants to send a boat without the proper experience crew that can possibly end up in disaster. So this is not a cruise, right? We're going out and we race. Basically, it's non-stop for like 3 to 5 days. It gets tiring. This is why night sailing experience, like a race we are doing tomorrow, is good because it's testing the crew. It gives you an idea of how part of your crew, some of your crew can react at night, and it's not the same, right? It's like we all get tired. We need to, it takes a bit of time to get to work in shifts. So it's extremely important that there is enough experience amongst that group of people that's going to go together on that boat and make sure that they can operate the boat in shifts in the safest way possible. So on that note, so tomorrow is one of the coastal race, so, which will be with a start at 4 p.m. So it's a great opportunity to have some night sailing. Next one will be Feb 4, and the last one will be March 11. And I will leave it over to you.
Thanks, Nicole. Just let me come back on that. Yeah, coastal races, they really are there for you to go out and practice. As soon as it gets dark, you suddenly realise you don't know where anything is on the boat, you don't know what the various cleats and jammers are doing, and you're fumbling around the place. That's how you learn your boat, is go sailing at night. So yeah, tomorrow evening. And anybody's looking for a sail tomorrow evening, come and see me, because I need a couple more crew on the road I'm on. A couple drop out today, so come and have a chat with me. And this one here, the DSC procedures. It's not just for distress guys. If you've got a big ship coming at you and you want to give them a radio call, there's no point in coming up in channel 16 anymore. Those days went out 20 years ago. You've got to give them a DSC call, so their radio goes beep beep beep, and they will then talk to you. If you can't do that, they won't talk to you, because they're not listening. So you've got to know these procedures. And as Nico said, stick them up beside your radio, and then practice them. Right, a scrutiny process, which my group of guys helped me out with. So a couple of issues on that, changes, and just getting some info across. So that race safety form, yeah, do all that sort of stuff on it. Person in charge will complete the checklist at the back, and it's so important that person does take responsibility to go through everything fully. And then they need to get an independent inspector on board. Please, I beg of you, no mates passes. Don't bring your pal on board who just takes everything and walks off. That's not what we want, because when my independent, when my official scrutineer comes on board, the boat should be ready. It should be on and off that boat in a very short time, because you've done everything right. And then we can crack on. So please, give them an easy time. They're not paid to do that job. It's got to be done in time, as Elsa will only too well, pester you for, because we don't have time to keep re-scrutineering or the big delayed and all the rest of it. So we've got to get these scrutineers done, finished, done and dusted well before the start of the race. So please, let's get on time. The one change that's been done, this was done quite a few years ago, but because we haven't done any races since then, is we now are only doing a check every 12 months for most people. So if you get the scrutineering done by the official scrutineer this time around and it all goes well, then you probably will not need it done again for the Vietnam race if you enter that one. However, we do reserve doing some random checks, and if we have particular boats that have been problematic because their scrutineering hasn't gone well and it's been a struggle, then they will probably be checked again. So it's in your own benefit to get on and have a really good scrutineer, and then we can say, great, let's move on. Right, CIQ, Elsa, would you like to just bring us through this one? So arriving on the Philippines.
Okay. So arrival into the Philippines. The CIQ fee has gone up since we were last there in 2018 because it now includes a fee that goes to the quarantine department. And they've also got an exit fee of $50 US. So upon arrival, you need to touch base with the Subic Bay Maritime Authority to advise them that you're coming in. They will then give you clearance to proceed to the marina. Before you can berth the boat in the marina, quarantine will come onto the boat and inspect the crew, etc. If anybody is showing any COVID symptoms, they will PCR test. So all the crew who are vaccinated, and in the Philippines that means 2 doses, they do not need to do any RAT test or PCR test pre-race. Anybody that's not vaccinated must have a PCR test at least within 48 hours of the start of the race. So getting the passport and ID card information into me is very important. Marine Department, if they come here, they will pre-clear you. So it's a very simple process when they actually come and stamp your passports, etc. For any delivery crew, we still need to give them that passport information, but they won't require the picture page of the passport. For visas, again, so anybody coming in from China or Taiwan, you require a visa into the Philippines, and this, again, will need to be pre-sent down to the Philippines. So, yeah.
Yeah, note that visa requirement. I was the first yacht into the Philippines this year after COVID. That was fun. You need a visa for a Hong Kong person in that occasion. So we need to be careful that we get everything done. Don't fight them on this. If they say they want a visa, get a visa, and then it'll be fine. Okay, but if you say, no, we're going to visit, it says you don't need one on the official documentation back in the Philippines, you need the websites and all that, don't go down that route. Just do what we ask you to do, and it'll be fine. Please. Post-race, getting towards the end. So, accommodation in Subic, I would advise you to book that soon. Because it's Easter weekend, although a lot of them are leaving roughly when we arrive, because Easter's a big thing in the Philippines. Quite a lot of the places are already quite full, so I would get on and book your accommodation ASAP. Sunday the 9th of April is the prize giving in Subic. I hope to see you all there and not running away too early, so come and enjoy the party. And then return flights. We don't have any flights out of Clark yet. So hopefully that will change when we get near to the date, and we'll get some flights out of Clark. Otherwise, we're going to have to go to Manila. We all know how much fun that is. Return delivery crew. What we're going to do is put another section on the website for the race. A bit like we've got for people who are putting themselves up for crew for the race, to have a separate section which is volunteers who will do the return delivery trips. I have a big database of people through my business, and on previous races I have put a lot of people in the direction of skippers for delivery crew back again. And so I will leverage that to get the people that I have contact with to put their details on there, so we should have a pretty good batch of people that we can use for return trips, because that can be a bit of a headache. And then we've got prize giving back here on the 19th of April. So, bottom line is, go and sign up for the race now, so we can communicate with you about potential discounts on like-buy buys and other potential purchases, and just get you into that mood. So if you're interested, please sign up for the race now. Over to you. Questions? If you don't mind.
Is there anything else you can share about the safety at sea course you need to do in time, given that I've registered for next course available, but I've no idea?
Yeah, sure. So I run the sea safety courses here. The pool is now closed. So I've just run a whole batch of them, and the pool closed after my last one at the weekend. The pool does not open again until the beginning of March. So there's not much I can do about that, because essentially all the pools in Hong Kong shut over this period, because part of the law actually have to shut down. So I will be running the courses, of course, before the race, but that could be difficult for people who are not in the country, etc. So I will run as many as I can to get as many people through as possible. So if you've got a chance of doing it somewhere else, like Australia or the UK, etc., that'd be good. We're also willing to accept STCW. Now actually under offshore special regulations, it's not entirely clear, but even World Sailing says probably not. We're willing to accept it as long as we see the people on the video evidence you've got to present doing the hoisting of the storm sails, the run of the steering and all those sort of things. If you see they're involved in the running of the boat, in your video evidence, or your photographic evidence you have to give us, we'll accept STCW. So that's another potential route for people. That's all I can give you on that. Anybody else? This is your chance. Oh, quiet. Well, we'll be around. We've got some beers, wine at the back, so we're not going anywhere. So grab yourself something, mingle, and come and chat to Nick or I or Elsa, and we're happy to update you over a casual beer or a glass of wine. So thank you for coming this evening, and see you on the racetrack. Thank you.